How's everybody doing tonight? It's Cam with Modern Retro Renaissance, and today I'm going to go straight retro, no modern. I'm going to talk about my favorite 5 top Super Nintendo games. Now, bear in mind that this is my top 5 favorite Super Nintendo games. I am not making the argument that these are the top 5 best Super Nintendo games. I will say that I feel that my number 1 is the best Super Nintendo game, but the others are definitely up for debate. Only number 1 will I die on that hill. I would probably fight you over number 1. You'll just have to wait and see when we get there. Once again, I'm not going to go into a lot of description on these games about the gameplay necessarily, or the graphics, or anything like that, the sound, because you know these games, or you should know most of these games. What I'm going to do is more anecdotal. I'm going to talk about the experiences that I had that make these games nostalgic to me, that make these games important to me as a gamer. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Number 5. My number 5 is Mortal Kombat 2. I played Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcades at the Giovanni's Pizzeria in our hometown for several months. I guess probably a year before it finally came out on Super Nintendo. My buddy Robbie, who also really enjoyed playing Mortal Kombat 2, actually leveraged his recently ex-girlfriend who had been unfaithful to him, more of a teenage unfaithful, to get this game for him in hopes that she would take him back. He did not take her back, but he definitely took Mortal Kombat 2. And for the next 3 or 4 months, we were not to be seen during daylight. We would play this game non-stop from the time that we got together until 2 or 3 in the morning, most weekends. This is the superior port, in my opinion. Sorry, Joel, with the poor man's retro game room. Genesis doesn't do what Nintendo does in this case. Man, I just love this game. I love this port. It came out when I was, I know, I was 14 when it came out, and it was everything that I was looking for in a fighter. The blood, the gore, the fatalities, still holds up today. Love the gameplay. You can see Baraka is playing in the background. Baraka was my favorite character back in the day. Probably still is for Mortal Kombat 2. Number 4. Super Punch-Out. What can I say? Probably no game for the Super Nintendo has aged better than Super Punch-Out. Just look at that game. It is still beautiful. Those sprites just shine. The nostalgia that I have for this game comes from me and my best friend Ricky Dale growing up. Loved playing the original Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. When this one came out, we rented it and actually kept it for over a month. Probably been cheaper just to have bought it, but you know, when you're 14 years old, sometimes you don't make the best decisions. This game actually kind of is bittersweet. Ricky Dale that I mentioned, he actually passed away a few years ago from a heart condition. So every time I see this game, every time I play this game now, I think of my friend that's no longer with me. Number 3. Donkey Kong Country released Christmas holiday of 1994. In my area, which was Eastern Kentucky, it was a game that was hard to come by. You could not find it on the shelves at Walmart, which was really the only place to look for a video game at that time. Luckily, my dad had went to Tennessee with some friends for, I can't even remember what now, but unbeknownst to me, he had found a copy at KB Toys or whatever game store it was at the mall. So that Christmas, whenever I opened this package, I was so surprised because I'd already given up any hope of getting Donkey Kong Country. The quote-unquote 3D sprites were absolutely earth-shattering at the time. I hadn't never seen anything like it. I don't guess anybody had seen anything like it. Didn't know that the Super Nintendo had it in her. But man, me and my brother, who's 5 years older than me, we absolutely wore this cartridge out. We knew every secret. We knew every inch of every stage because we played it over and over and over again. Number 2! I realize that my number 2 pick is very controversial. I won't even argue that XBLA is probably even not in the top 3 best shoot-'em-ups on the Super Nintendo from an objective point of view. But just something about this game has always made me love it. I love that half the stages are horizontal, half are vertical. I like the mode 7 on the vertical stages. Everything about this game just speaks to me. There is that certain je ne sais quoi, that I don't know what about this game. I love that between stages you get to pick your loadout, which grows with each stage. It's not like your traditional shooter where you pick up power-ups during the game. Actually, with this game, you lose power-ups as you get hit. They kind of work like your lives. Konami never made a sequel to this game, and it is one of my biggest regrets from Konami, which is saying something based off of Konami's recent track record. Number 1! My number 1, Super Mario World, as you can see, is not a controversial pick. It's a lot of people's number 1. I would make the argument, and I would fight tooth and nail to defend this argument, that Super Mario World is the best 2D platformer ever made, that they have not improved upon it since that time. It was a launch title with the Super Nintendo, and they peaked early. They peaked on day 1. I mean, look at the game. It has aged almost as well graphically as Super Punch-Out. Some would argue that it's probably aged as well. If I need to tell you why Super Mario World is my number 1, you probably don't need to be watching my channel, because you definitely do not understand retro games. I would go as far as to speak blasphemy and say Super Mario World is twice the game Super Mario 3 is. Please don't kill me, but I have some crazy opinions, I know. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is my top 5. It was a very hard thing to choose. I know that I left off a lot of your top 5s. I probably left off a lot of your top 1. I left off Super Metroid. I left off Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I left off Super Mario RPG. The list goes on. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy III. I could be here all day naming other Super Nintendo games. A lot of them, I realize, are technically better than my top 5. But they just don't hold the same nostalgia that the games that I picked do. I hope you've enjoyed my list. In the comments below, let me know what your top 5 are. Let me know why you agree with me, why you disagree. Nothing like healthy discussion. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy and have a wonderful night gaming. Bye-bye.